Ohio people with Mennonite views, and they're gonna give us some missional news. Ohio Conference Cast.
You are listening to Ohio Conference Cast, a podcast dedicated to sharing missional stories and other information about Ohio Mennonite Conference.
Welcome to the podcast. My name is Kevin Himes. I'm pastor of Salem Mennonite Church in Kidron, and I have the distinct privilege of hosting the very first episode of a brand new podcast from Grace and Groundings. And if you don't know who Grace and Groundings are, we are a team of people from the Ohio Conference of Mennonite Church USA, and we are primarily a racial reconciliation resource team, but as you're going to find out in some of these podcasts, we do branch out into different topics, different areas. And today's podcast is very much going to look at a different area of social righteousness and shalom. Today, I am joined by Terry Shue, Development Director at Central Christian School in Kidron, and Alex Murza. He is a chef in training, I believe. And he's a wonderful addition to the Kidron community who came to us from Ukraine. Alex and his wife, Natalia, have two children. Max is actually in school with my daughter, Miriam. And a newborn, Leonardo. So Alex probably is getting no sleep, but that's okay. We're glad to have you. And Alex, I believe your parents, Oleg and Katya, are also living with you here in Kidron as well. So with that, I just want to pick Alex and Terry's brains here today, just to find out more about the experience of being a refugee and some of the brokenness that is experienced along the way, but also stories of hope and stories of help and being the hands and feet of Jesus. So Alex, I want to start with you. Russia's invasion of your homeland in February of 2022, we're going on about 2 years ago, has displaced over 6 million Ukrainians, according to some reports. And I'm wondering, Alex, if you can just describe for our listeners the specific circumstances, the story that brought you and your family from Ukraine clear over on the other side of the world to Kidron, Ohio. What is your story, Alex?
Hello, everybody. The story kind of interesting, and when it all starts, nobody can believe in that, because before, even when we know that some of kind of invasion could be started from Russia, we can't believe it in that, because all this year or all my life we lived close with Russia, and every second person in Ukraine has some friends or some relatives in Russia, and that's why we always live together without any problems. But one day Russia decided to start war and capture our territory, and that's night they start war. It's like about 5 a.m. in the morning, everybody sleep, and they just start bombing everything, like houses, people was leaving, airport, everything. And how we know that war start. And yes, of course it was panic, and nobody know what. And we, like a lot of people, decide I need to save my family.
How close, Alex, was the fighting and the bombing to where you were living? Were you pretty close to the war zone, or?
When just war start, that was pretty close. I saw like missiles and I heard explosion, but it was not very close. I just saw it, but when we decide to move from Kiev, in that moment we thought that was a good idea, but not, and we go close to Bucha, and after that's what start like even more intense, I think, even more intense side of the war. we heard the explosion, we saw helicopters and with Russian, and a couple houses was exploded because of the missiles, maybe like, I don't know, 1 mile from us, very close.
And most of your, I mean, you could only take with you whatever you could just grab or pack in a car, or, I mean...
Yeah, we don't have anything, because when war start, it was 5 in the morning, and we thought, okay, we even doesn't know what's happened, just explosion, and we thought it maybe like 1-2 day, we need to leave our place for 2 day, like couple things, and that's all, and everything left. That's why we don't have much things with us, just maybe small bag, and that's all. And that's how my family go to their trip with 2 small bag, and that's all. It's helped that this was cold enough and to have warm clothes. That's why they have like some clothes with us, just because we wear it.
And when your family did arrive, Kidron isn't exactly a big dot on the map. It's not the destination for most people in the U.S. So share a little bit. I know Natalia and Max, again, came ahead of you. How did they end up here in the middle of the country?
Why Kidron? Because of our friend from school. Her husband lived not far from Kidron, and
Millersburg.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and she helped us to find some like place for first couple weeks, I don't know, where our family can stay, and that's why we at all we don't know anything, and we have no idea what we're gonna do, and our friend just helped us with some place to live, and they told us, okay, it was here, okay, and we just know direction. They found that place, and that's how they go to Millersburg. Yeah, it's not far from Kidron, and they stay there for a while, but after that they can't stay in that place, and my wife just literally walking from one door to other door and just ask if you have some place for rent or for living or for anything. And after that, in a while, meet our friend Terry, and they help us with with place.
Let's talk about that a little bit, Terry, because that's where you come into their lives, and you've worked very closely with Alex and Natalia since they've come to Ohio. So talk a little bit about that, when your path crossed with the Murzas, and we're beginning to see with the housing and things that people started to rally around Alex and Natalia with support. Can you just talk about that? And I think, Terry, that's inspiring for us as listeners, because if we have similar situations of refugees in our communities, I believe that what you're about to tell us could maybe inspire us as we look for ways to reach out to others. So, Terry, talk a little bit about what that was like.
Yeah, it was early on in the war when the news cycle in the U.S. was fixated on Ukraine. And so we were bombarded with this information all the time. And I was working at Central Christian. Actually, it was the year that I was the head administrator. And Stacy Chig, our enrollment director, said she heard a family moved to Millersburg, and they were living close to a family who had a student at Central. And she asked our leadership team, could we invite that student just to come to Central, just as a safe place, easy to get acclimated, because we have a lot of international students there, and it would be a way just to give them a reprieve. And we made that invitation to Natalia, who I hadn't met at that time, and Max and Natalia came up, and the first time I met Natalia was in the cafeteria at Central. It was just days after she got to the U.S., and she was still, in my memory, in shock of what was going on. In this fleeing from Ukraine, carrying a suitcase and 2 coats, and she ended up at Central trying to find a place for her son to go to school. They had moved. They were required to leave the apartment in Millersburg, and like Alex was saying, Natalie had no idea where to go. She thought she was going to be homeless in America, and it was a terrible story. And finally, she found an opportunity of a house that was going to be demolished in Kidron that now has a big office complex. And the owner there said, "You can live here, but we're going to tear it down just real soon." They decided they were going to move in. It was Natalia did it sight unseen. She didn't, and they walked in, and the house was bare. No furniture, no beds, nothing. And in Ukraine, the understanding, if you rent a house, it's furnished with everything.
Yeah, that was a challenge.
So she just broke down crying. She had nothing. She was in this old house that was going to be torn down. She didn't know if it was going to be a couple weeks or months or what. And Kelsey and Jeff was with her that night, and that's our youngest daughter. And ended up, Jeff is the pastor at Berlin Mennonite, and they started putting their prayer chain and their workers to work. Our larger family, our other daughters, and Kay and I kind of worked with them, and within 24 hours we had washing machines, beds, kitchen supplies, tables, chairs, couches, everything that we got gathered up, and it just kind of appeared. And it was an amazing time that from that moment on we've been walking with the Murzas. And it was probably 2 months after that Alex was able to join the rest of the family here in Kidron at the little house downtown. And I remember that great celebration that we had when you arrived, surprised his wife, right? Try to imagine that. And then they threw a feast meal for our whole family and Alex in celebration. And it was pretty special. It was a real holy moment. Then it was several months after that they were still living in this tension. They didn't know how long they could live in this house. They didn't have any papers. They didn't have any finances. There was just a circle of people that different ones of us helped and inspired and networked, created kind of a safety net for them, because it wasn't there yet with our government, because of the complexities of Alex came with different papers than Natalie and different papers than Oleg and Katya, and it was difficult through the intervention of godly people and a miracle. I was made aware of a family who I used to be their pastor who had an extra apartment. We met with this couple, and my wife Kay and I met with Alex and Natalia and Roger and Betty. And it was again just this holy moment that we have this we want to share with you. And from that day on, Alex and Natalie have been living in one of the condos in Kidron. It's not been easy, right? And Alex and I, we had some paperwork to work out, and Alex is a trained lawyer. He didn't tell you that, right? But he dug deep into our immigration papers as immigration system, and he came over one day and put a bunch of papers on our table, and he said, "Terry, I need you to be my sponsor for me to get my papers." And I worked through it, and I had to get letters from my bank, letters from my employer, letters from whatever. And I sent him into the State Department, and they accepted me to be Alex's legal sponsor, and it opened the door up for paperwork that came quicker because you had a sponsor. But it was still a journey that we didn't know how it was going to end. We didn't know if Alex was going to be sent back to the Ukraine on his own and his family here. And there was one day in particular that it was real exciting, but also tense, because we didn't know what was going to happen when Alex left that day. So again, it was miraculous, and to me, my motivation was, even before I learned to know and love the Murza family, my motivation was, in my faith and in my history, working with strangers and aliens has been really important. Clear back when Kay and I were married, I worked with my brother who welcomed refugees from El Salvador. You remember those days? And my brother Brad then ended up having Ernie in his house for 2 years before he got his papers and moved to Canada with other family members. But I think it's something deep in our service kind of understanding of faith that when we see a need, we try to do something. And it's not just, oh, I'll pray for you. It's kind of getting involved in ways that, it's costly, not just finances, but to walk with and love somebody, because we didn't know what was going to happen, and to build those relationships have been life-giving for us and a deep expression of our faith, Christian faith. And now Alex is out training to be a chef, and one of these days I want to go and have him cook me a meal. But they've done plenty of that too.
Well, let's talk about. Thank you, Terry. Thanks. Let's talk about that a little bit. Alex, you are highly educated. Terry just mentioned that you are a lawyer, and you have this life back in Ukraine. But it's not as simple as, okay, I'm in a new place, I'm in a new country, I've got my college education, I can just pick up where I left off. In hearing you speak a little bit before we started recording, working and finding work that is enough to support your family is a very difficult journey. Can you talk a little bit about that, what your experience has been trying to put food on the table in the U.S.?
Yeah, that was another hard story, how Terry told before. In one hand, I need money. On the other hand, I need papers for have this money. And I'm waiting for that papers almost 6 months. And I'm working like a volunteer, but that's not a work. That's just help, and I give back, if I can tell. That's way. Community helped me a lot, and I give my debt. But
I want to add this piece because I think it speaks to the community also, and to Alex's character. He didn't have papers, so he couldn't legally work, but he wanted to help everybody. He was wanting to do all these things. So, and there was a circle of people gathered around him that helped financially keep Max at school and do what they needed to get settled. And I remember one day I said, Alex, if you want to learn to know this community and thank them, 2 places that you can build community in the Kidron area is to work at MCC Connections and Central Christian. So he started volunteering both places, really working full time and getting to know people. And I still go in at Connections, and people love Alex because he was young and strong and energetic, and all the rest of them are old people like me, right?
You're not old.
Oh yeah, but also at Central, he was doing everything. He was helping with lunch, and all those kind of ways built a community around knowing Alex and Natalia. Natalia then we hired at Central as a teacher's aide, and we couldn't pay her because she didn't have, but after she got her papers, we back paid her for that whole year, which was which was a great day for all of us. But Alex built a lot of goodwill by volunteering because he couldn't get paid, but he wanted to thank that people. And that's a great story.
And I started looking for job with money, and with a law business, with a law firm, because I have a gap between law in Ukraine and law in the United States. It's totally two different system, and they work totally different. And I should have, if I want to work like a lawyer in the United States, I should have special education inside the United States, and then bar exam, start again.
Basically
almost,
starting all over.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. And that's hard, and I for education, for go all this way before I can really work like a lawyer. And that's why I try different type of work, but the one thing I should have papers, another thing I should have some experience inside United States, and that was hard. And I visit job center and try to find some work through that things, and they just can offer me they can offer me job, but some job I even doesn't know what it could be, but they told me I will have some money instead of that job, and when I divide it, that's hours, it should be at least 7 hours per day, 5 days a week, or 4 days a week, yes, and it will be almost $4 per hour.
That's not enough.
Yeah, it's not enough.
Not even close to enough.
It looked like whole week work, like full almost 40 hours, even 30 hours, okay, but it's still 30 hours, and I can do nothing for that money, and that's why I can't do that. And I'm still waiting for my papers, and when I get papers for work, I'm start looking for some job, and because of I like cooking in Ukraine, I decide to move that way. And first my job in United States was in Taco Bell, and start working like regular line worker. And for 1 year, almost 1 year, I'm working with the Taco Bell. I have like very good place, very good staff there, and I was promoted to general assistant manager. And after that, I have offer from restaurant and moved there because of for that moment I already go to culinary institute, and that was my next step, close to be a chef.
So if I'm hearing you right, Alex, it sounds like your biggest challenge moving forward is still securing work that compensates you well, but I'm also hearing you say it looks like things might be trending in a good direction for you with the, I mean, again, some challenges ahead, but there's maybe open doors with culinary arts school and being a chef.
Yes, yes, I believe that because all my previous life show me that God can have so many connection, and I even can imagine how it will be. And my last 3-4 years show me that how it works. All that things which happen with my family, just because God help us and lead through the life. And if someone told me before 4 years ago That's everything goes like that. I can't believe that, because that's too complicated. So many things, so many dots connect in one picture, and you can imagine it can happen like that.
Well, as we wrap up this podcast, Alex, first of all, I just want to mention that I appreciate you sharing today. I appreciate your courage. I appreciate your tenacity. I don't know if you guys have a Ukrainian word for grit, but you have grit in terms of just staying the course in the face of great adversity. And I just appreciate you so much, Alex. And as I already said at the beginning of the podcast, you, your wife, your kids, your folks are just a great addition to our community, and we are richly blessed to have you in our midst. So I am sorry for the circumstances that brought you here, but I'm so glad you're here. And just continue to look forward to the ways that you will be a blessing to us in the weeks, months, and years ahead.
Дякую. Дякую.
And Terry, as I hear you talking, I just realize that we who are followers of Jesus, we follow Jesus. It's more than just reading a scripture or going to worship. We put our faith into practice. And if the people of God are not ready to be the people of God and to live the kingdom here on earth, then in environments or stories like this, Alex and Natalia maybe don't get the network of people around them, and maybe this story ends very differently. And so I just think that we as Christians have to have our eyes open within our community, and we need to see those who are in our midst, immigrants, refugees, those who are documented, undocumented, and just be willing to be friends and to open up our homes and provide resources. I think that is very much living out what Jesus taught. So both sides of that story are just very helpful as we build a picture of what it's like to be a refugee in the United States. So once again, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Terry, for being a part of the podcast. And it's been a joy to be the inaugural host for this. So signing off for Grace and Groundings, this is Kevin Himes, and we will see you for the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Ohio people with Mennonite views, and they're gonna give us some missional news. Ohio Conference Cast.
Thank you for listening to another edition of Ohio Conference Cast. We would love to hear from you. Our email is ohioconferencecast@gmail.com. Ohio Conference Cast is brought to you by the Ohio Conference Leadership Team, along with Norm Sohar, sound engineer, Megan Sohar, voiceover, Ann Lehman, publisher, and our many guests and listeners.